All right, so we've got a pretty interesting stack of info here about becoming a blockchain developer, right? Career guides, we've got interview tips, even some stuff about AI and how it's changing the hiring game. So are you ready to dive in and go from blockchain newbie to informed, you know, insider? Let's do it.
It's really interesting to me what we've got here because it doesn't just tell you what a blockchain developer is,
Mm-hmm.
but it actually shows you what they do, like on a day-to-day basis. It's a really cool look at this career path.
Okay, so less buzzwords, more like actually what's going on. I like it. So tell me then, according to all the stuff we have, what does a blockchain developer actually do all day?
Well, this blockchain developer, the
Yeah.
complete career guide that we have, it says that they implement or program blockchain-based software systems. So, yeah, of course, they're the brains behind the code that powers cryptocurrencies, but it's so much more than that.
So not just building the next Bitcoin.
No, not even close. One thing that really stood out to me from the guide was how blockchain can actually be used to track pharmaceuticals. Like, think about being able to ensure that the medication is authentic and preventing counterfeits, which could be absolutely huge for, global health.
Wow. Okay, see, now that's what I'm talking about, like real world impact. What does that actually look like for the developer, though? Are we talking someone coding alone in their basement or?
Definitely not a lone wolf kind of situation.
Yeah.
The guide really emphasizes that working directly with clients is a huge part of the job, so being able to really collaborate effectively and communicate clearly about these really complex systems is key.
Makes sense. You can't just wave your hands and say, it's blockchain, trust me.
Right. And because security and efficiency are like so important in blockchain, the guide stresses how important it is to make sure that those elements are, rock solid in whatever the developer is building.
Yeah.
And they also need to be comfortable working with different programming languages and platforms because, each project can have unique demands.
So not just one coding language to rule them all, huh? This is starting to sound like a field where you need to really embrace continuous learning. It's exciting, but it's also kind of intimidating.
You hit the nail on the head. And that leads perfectly into the next thing. Is this career path right for you? And the sources we have lay out some pretty clear pros and cons to think about. So on the one hand, you've got high demand and potentially big paychecks.
Okay, so high demand, big paychecks. Yeah, I'm seeing dollar signs, but something tells me it's not quite that easy, right? You mentioned pros and cons. What's the catch?
Yeah, you're right. The guide definitely doesn't try to sugarcoat it. So while, yeah, high demand and lucrative salary are definitely listed as perks, this isn't some get-rich-quick kind of deal. The field really demands continuous learning.
So what kind of learning are we talking, like keeping up with the latest coding languages, or is it something more than that?
It's really more about embracing the fact that blockchain technology is constantly evolving. I think of it kind of like you're not just learning how to use a set of tools, but you're learning how to actually build the toolbox itself. You know what I mean? That means you have to stay updated on new advancements. You're constantly expanding your skills, maybe even diving into niche areas as the field kind of develops.
So you always kind of have to be comfortable with the beta stage of things, like always tinkering and
Yeah.
adapting.
And that could be a big hurdle for some people, which is actually another thing that the guide brings up. The work itself is complex, it's technical, and that can be a challenge.
Yeah, I get it. Not everyone's cut out for that level of deep dive, even if the perks sound really amazing at first. Any other downsides they mentioned?
Well, one thing that really jumps out, and this might be relevant to, you specifically, is the geographical element. So the guide mentions that job opportunities are still kind of limited in certain regions.
That's a really good point. Speaking of location, though, I did notice something kind of interesting in these sources: remote work. That seems to be like a big thing in the blockchain world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not specifically listed as a pro in the guide, but the ability to work remotely is definitely a big draw for a lot of people. And from what I've seen, it's pretty common in this field.
So for someone who really thrives in a fast-paced environment that's always changing and maybe enjoys, the comforts of working from home, this could be like a dream career, right? But let's say you're ready to take the plunge. How do you even break into this world? This sounds super competitive.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting because these sources, they go beyond just listing the skills you need. They actually give strategic advice on how to really stand out during your job search. And one platform that keeps popping up is this thing called RoleCatcher. You heard of that?
RoleCatcher, yeah, it sounds kind of familiar, but refresh my memory. Is that a job board?
It's way more than just a job board. It's described as a whole platform, like a comprehensive platform with a bunch of tools designed to help you manage your entire job search. So imagine being able to capture job postings from like tons of different sites. You can analyze your skills gaps, like which coding languages you need to brush up on, or like blockchain platforms, manage your applications. You can even practice interview skills all in one place.
Okay, yeah, I see why they're mentioning that. It sounds like a game changer if you're feeling, overwhelmed by the whole job searching process, especially in a field like blockchain where everything moves so fast. But there's another thing that these sources keep bringing up, and that's AI, artificial intelligence. It seems like that's really changing how the whole hiring process works too, right?
Oh yeah, big time. And that's where RoleCatcher comes in handy too. This Beat the Automated Recruiter section, it really digs into all of that, like how AI is totally changing the game when it comes to getting hired.
So tell me more about that. What's the deal with AI and hiring?
Well, it's actually super interesting. So companies are using AI systems more and more to scan resumes and applications, right? And these systems are looking for really specific things like keywords, what skills you have. They're even analyzing your writing style to try to figure out who the best candidates are.
Wow, so it's not even just about who you know anymore. It's about how well you can appeal to these, like, AI gatekeepers. That's kind of intimidating. How do you even compete with
Okay,
that?
no, it's like a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why all these sources really emphasize that you can't just be reactive, you need to be proactive.
Hmm.
So it's not enough to just send out a million generic applications anymore. You have to build a really strong online presence. You should be contributing to open source projects, participating in hackathons, basically. You need to create a portfolio that shows off your skills and your passion for blockchain.
So it's almost like you're building a case for yourself, like proving you're the real deal, and not just someone who Googled blockchain buzzwords 5 minutes before hitting apply.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why something like RoleCatcher can be so valuable, because it helps you actually see what those AI systems are looking for, and then you know how to tailor your resume and everything to kind of match. But even beyond the technical skills and the job hunting strategies, there's something even more fundamental at play here that all of these sources mention, and they call it the blockchain mindset.
Blockchain mindset. Okay, now that sounds kind of intriguing. It sounds almost mystical. Break that down for me. What does that even mean? Blockchain mindset. Okay, now that sounds kind of intriguing. It sounds almost mystical. Break that down for me. What does that even mean?
Well, it's not about chanting mantras or anything like that. It's more a way of thinking that really lines up with the core principles
Yeah.
of blockchain, decentralization, transparency, trust, those kinds of things.
Okay, those are some big, like, philosophical words. What do those actually look like in the real world for a blockchain developer?
Okay, so let's take decentralization. It's this idea that no one single entity controls the network, right? So a blockchain developer with this kind of mindset, they're not just following orders from, a boss or something. They're thinking about how to build these systems that are resilient, they're open, and they empower users.
So it's more than just a job, then. It's about buying into a whole new way of actually building things.
Exactly. And then there's the whole transparency thing. Remember how we were talking about blockchain being used to keep track of pharmaceuticals?
Yeah.
Well, that traceability, that's a huge part of what makes blockchain so appealing.
Yeah.
So a blockchain developer really needs to be okay with working in an environment where everybody can see what's going on. The code, the transactions, everything's out in the open.
It's like building a house out of glass walls, right?
Yeah.
But that takes a certain level of, well, trust.
And that's the other big part of this blockchain mindset, that idea of trust. Because these systems are all built on cryptography, consensus mechanisms, that kind of thing. There's this built-in trust that's like essential for everything to work. So a really good developer, they don't just need to understand the technology, they also need to actually believe in it.
Yeah.
Believe in its potential to create systems that are more fair and equitable.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see why this whole mindset thing is so important. It's not just about being like a coding whiz. It's about really buying into this whole new philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because these sources, they talk about how that philosophy actually attracts a certain kind of person to the field. People who are community-minded, they like to collaborate, and they really thrive in that kind of environment where you're always learning.
Which goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? You've got to be open to that constant learning, that adaptation, because technology never sits still.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And since open source projects are such a big part of blockchain, developers are constantly sharing what they know, helping each other out, and kind of pushing the limits of what's possible together.
That's really cool. So to kind of recap for everyone listening, if you're thinking about becoming a blockchain developer, you've really got to ask yourself, are you excited about what this technology can do? Do you like working with other people and solving tough problems? And are you okay with, a steep learning curve? Because things change fast in this world.
Those are all really good questions to be thinking about, and it really makes you wonder what's next for blockchain. What other industries is it going to like revolutionize, and what role are you going to play in making that happen?
Now, those are some questions worth thinking about. And if we've learned anything from this whole deep dive, it's that the world of blockchain is bursting with opportunity, especially for those of you who are willing to embrace the challenge, all the learning, and yes, even that mindset we were talking about. So keep asking those questions, keep that curiosity going. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll see you out there one day building the future one block at a time.